All right, so let's look at the parsing questions first of all on chapter 24 here. So aorist and future passive indicative. Have we any questions about this? Number 10.
I also have a question on
Acousthete. Okay, very good. Then let's take a look here, shall we? You might want to open your book to the chapter. All right. So let's address the acoustic question first of all. We've got this this note on page 219. So you notice that this is not what you're expecting, is it? Because you have that sigma there, don't you? Yeah. Everything else is identifiable. What's the vowel that the eta was before? Yeah, that was an alpha. And then the theta eta is telling you it's aorist passive. And then the te is telling you it's second plural, right? So if you look at your note here, this is on page 219. Akuo is my pattern 1A verb. By the way, these numbers that go with pattern, that has to do with Mounce's book called Morphology of Biblical Greek or New Testament Greek, but he uses those numbers in his book as well. So if you don't know what 1A means, don't worry about that. That's just a set of verbs that follow the same pattern. But notice here that acousthane is the aorist passive that's given, and he gives you a footnote here that several verbs insert a sigma after the tense formative. After the tense stem and before the tense formative. And sure enough, we have a sigma here after the stem, but before the tense formative. And that there's no rule to do that. Okay, so this is just a peculiarity of this particular verb. So if you're asking me, should I memorize all the principal parts of akuo? No, but this is one of the principal parts that you should memorize. Because for the most part, akuo is normal.
Okay, so if we ever see a sigma before that, like after the tense stem, we just kind of be like, okay, that's just there.
Right. You can still identify the form. Augment tells you it's aorist or imperfect. Theta eta tells you it's passive, so it's aorist passive. Yep. Is that what you're going to say? Okay. Very good. So that's that one. What about 10? Was that one of the other ones? Yeah. So this also does not behave like we would have expected for the pattern. What's my lexical form for sothesetai? It's sodzo. Did I spell that right? No. What am I missing? Yeah, there's actually an iota subscript here. There's an iota subscript there. So anyhow, the real root that we've learned is sod, which is a delta stem. But this is a situation where we would have wanted to see a sigma before this theta, but one doesn't show up. It's still parsable, isn't it? You have theta eta sigma. You have no augment. So when you see that theta eta, no augment, you need to be thinking to yourself, this might be future passive here. You see the sigma, that confirms it, connecting vowel, and the middle passive endings. So that is what person and number there? It's second plural, and it's future passive indicative. Okay? How did you translate that, by the way? You all or y'all will be saved. Yes, exactly. All right.
I just thought it would be sauce.
Right. Yes. You're usually looking for a sigma to appear where the dental was before you add the theta eta. Right. So that's our typical thing to do. And yet there are times when our verbs don't do what we expect. All right. What else? Anything else
Why is there no augment on number 6?
on number 6? Does anybody see an augment anywhere? Ah, yes. The eta is an augment for what?
Oh,
For an alpha. My verb is soon ago. That's right. So this alpha has augmented. Why did it augment there? Why didn't we put an epsilon before the sigma here of soon ago? That's right. This is a compound verb. And we augment where? Yes, after the prefix at the front of the stem. Okay. Now, if you see the theta eta here, that should tell you what? Aorist passive indicative. What ending is it? It's no ending, zero ending, which means it's third singular. And what does sunago mean in the active voice? To gather someone or something. So here, as a passive verb, it means to, to be gathered. Okay, and in the past tense, the aorist, it's he, she, or it was gathered. Okay, so was gathered. Okay. Any other questions about the parsing here? So number 7 on the voice, that sounds like a TV show. For the voice, it's, what did it say, deponent? So he gave you aorist deponent. Yeah, you don't have to use the language of deponent. So technically, the form is aorist passive. Okay, but its meaning will be as if it were an active voice verb in terms of the sense. So it'll still be they answered, not they were answered. Okay. By the way, if you look at apokrytheson real quickly for a second, is my tense formative theta eta, or is it theta eta sigma? Well, don't you have a theta eta sigma tense formative? So when you see it toward the back end of a verb, you should just assume that it's future, right? Future passive? Okay, that's the deal, is if you think that's a future passive form, then what's supposed to come after the tense formative of the future passive? The connecting vowel. And you ain't got one here, okay? So that means that you have to chop that somewhere else. That it's not theta eta sigma, but theta eta. And then you have to ask yourself, is son an identifiable personal ending given that tense formative? And the answer would be yes. Absolutely yes. Heck yes. And the other thing you'd be maybe wanting to double check is there an augment somewhere? Well, look at that. That's a short vowel. That's not augmented. So this can't be the aorist passive indicative, can it? Ah, that's because the alpha can't be augmented? Is that my augment there? And why is that? Because it's a compound verb. Apa is a prefix. Then the krenomai. So there we go. Augment goes after the apa. What happened to the omicron? Yeah, it drops out when I add another vowel after it. Elision. The vowel elided. Yes.
Is that word like apo plus kreno?
Yeah, it's a apa plus kreno. But when you think about it, it's a false cognate when you take the parts and try to come up with the meaning of the word from the parts. What's that? Exactly. But this verb doesn't mean to judge from. It means to answer, respond, reply to someone. So just like butter and fly don't mean what you think it means if all you're doing is joining the meanings of the parts together. Okay, very good. Other questions? Anything else?
Number 8.
Number 8. We have blepses. Say that with me. Blepses. Blepses. So what do we have here? There's a psi. What might that be reflection of? Ah, a labial and a sigma. That's good. So something and a sigma. If that's the case, then what tense am I looking at? Future. Is this an active or a middle passive stem or ending? It's active. Good. And with the ace ending, it's second singular. And what's my lexical form? Blepo. Terrific. And what does this form mean? Blepses. You will see. You will see. Or if you're Yoda, see you will. Okay, good. What about number 9? We have agrafe. Agrafe. What are we looking at here? What's the, yeah, we got an augment. That's good. And is that it? Oh, what's the tense formative? Just eta. Which tense formative is just eta? Second aorist passive. That's right. And then what ending is nothing after a second aorist passive tense formative? Third singular. So how would you translate? Oh, what's the lexical form? Grapho. And then how would you translate this? He, she, or it, and probably it is really what we're doing, right? Yeah, he was written into history. All right, very good. So was written.
On number 8,
Mm-hmm.
had that been passive, how would that translate?
So if it had been a future passive indicative, second singular, it would be you will be written. You will be written. That's right. All right. Any other questions here? I'm sorry. Yes, number 8. If that verb had been passive, it would be you will be seen. Sorry about that. Let's go look at number 2 and compare that with number 8. So blepses is my future active. Number 2 is ablatheta. Ablatheta. Is this from blepo? Do you see that ble? That surely that's blepo, isn't it? Are you sure? Positive? What is this lexical form? Balo. Are you willing to take a bullet to the head for this? No. So
Like a punch to the arm for it. Or a carrot down the shirt for it.
so I have an epsilon here. So what is that telling us? That's an augment. So what are my 2 past time possibilities? Okay, so imperfect or aorist. Now, next I have a theta, eta, but no sigma. That commits me to aorist passive. Good. Look at the te. That commits me to a second plural ending. So I'm left with blay. How in the world did blay come out of ball? Is it? Yeah, it's a different stem. And that actually should give me some comfort, right? Because if this is an aorist passive, then it uses a different stem than the present frequently, doesn't it? So I've got the beta and the lambda of ball, but not the alpha, do I? And I've got the eta on the end. So who remembers what the real root of ballo is? Yeah, it's ball with 1 lambda. So really, there hasn't been as much change from the root as if we were to think that the present stem were really the most basic part of the verb. This would be even a little bit more confusing. But if you remember that the roots are the most basic form of a verb, then the change from ball to blay is not that much. Okay? So anyhow, how would I translate ablay theta? So y'all were thrown. Y'all were thrown. Sounds like something that could be done by football players or something, huh? Okay.
Mounce had it is thrown out.
Yeah, well, there is a verb ekbalo, which means to throw out or cast out. Although you could use balo and then add a preposition, and then it would mean to throw out of someplace. Yeah. I think that's probably a bit too assumptive in that without any context, I would go with just the most basic sense of to throw or cast. Whether you're casting something in or out is entirely up to the context. All right. So any other questions on the parsing here? No? You ready to move on? Okay. Well, let's warm up then. And we will look here. Yeah, we should. Let's do some jumping jacks. Okay, so any specific questions here?
Yeah, beta. So I got there. He will speak to you concerning all.
Mm-hmm.
But Mounce said it was there. It will be told to you about everything. So I mean, I just have a little out of order. I used some different words. But
Mm-hmm.
but was that what? Did I put like a correct answer?
Okay, so you said he will speak, right?
I said there. He will speak to you concerning all.
So what is the lexical form of lale thesatai?
Laleo.
It's laleo, okay? So what I have here is a verb that does have an active form with an active meaning. Okay, so to speak or to say. And now it's been made passive by the theta, eta, sigma, and future. So chances are that I need to render this with a passive meaning then. So it will be laleod. It will be said to you there. Or it will be spoken to you there concerning all things. So yeah, you want to make it future passive since that's the way to parse this.
That makes sense.
Okay? All right, good. Any others?
I always forget the parts like in the actual translation.
Mm-hmm. By the way, is this pontone, what gender is that? Okay, that's the case. It's genitive and plural. You got that part. But what gender could it be? Masculine or neuter? Okay, this could be genitive, plural, masculine or neuter. Why couldn't it be feminine? The first declension is the feminine form. Remember passa? What happens to passa when it becomes genitive, plural? It becomes passon. Okay, I'm going to have that sigma in there. Okay, because this is a first declension noun, not a third declension, or it's an adjective. It's not third declension. Third declension forms have stems that end with consonants. So nu tau ends the stem before I add the own. Okay? Over here, passa has had the omega, as it were, swallow up the alpha of the first declension vowel. Remember, first declension nouns and adjectives have stems ending with alpha or eta. Did you guys have to learn those noun rules?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Was that a nya or yeah?
I mean, it was on like the first test.
Right.
But we
Right.
talked about it.
But then you jettisoned it as soon as you could? Yeah.
My professor made me remember.
I wonder who made you remember that, Kyle. No, but it is important to remember these things, isn't it?
Phil told me to remember them all.
Okay, well, I'm glad I told you that.
Wait, what?
My name is Phil.
Oh, Phil Morrow, which you had. So I thought you were making a joke because you taught Phil Morrow.
Right.
So
No,
thought you were-
I didn't teach him Greek, though. Yeah.
So I thought that's why you were making a joke.
Right. I was joking, but a different sort of joke. Okay. All right, so anyhow, should you understand this to be masculine or neuter? What do you think? Probably neuter. And then you're going to translate this as all what? All things. All things. Okay, good. Other warm-up problems?
I translated it as the house is my house of prayer, but it's my house that we call the house of prayer, or called the house of prayer.
Okay. So that is an interesting question. So I have ha oikos mu oikos prasu case. This is what case? Mu. Genitive. Prasu case is what case? That's also genitive. Okay? And it is frequently the case, pardon the pun, that genitive case nouns follow the noun that they are modifying or qualifying. It's not always the case, but frequently it is. So if we go ahead and go with ha oikos mu, then I have a noun phrase here that stands together, and the head of the noun phrase is nominative. So this could be the subject, okay? It's not guaranteed to be the subject because then the next noun phrase I have is a noun with its genitive noun modifying it, and that's also nominative, isn't it? A house of prayer. So then I have klethesetai. Just thinking about the form here, just to practice, is this an aorist passive? See that theta eta? Doesn't that look like an aorist passive? That part does. The sigma tells me it's a future passive. Okay? Tai, subject is third singular. So some third singular entity will be kletheseid, whatever that means. What is that verb from? Kaleo, which means to call. Make it future passive. It will be called. Okay, so which one of these nominative noun phrases is the subject? Is it ha oikos mu or oikos prasu case? Yeah. Here's a general rule of thumb. The subject of a sentence is usually the topic of the sentence, so it's what's already sort of established in the discourse. And then you're usually asserting some new bit of information about whatever you happen to be talking about. In this case, it's what the Lord's house is going to be called, okay? And notice that part is anarthrous, no article. Usually, articular noun phrases are the known entity, and then what you're saying about that, what's new about it, the new information, is anarthrous. This is especially true when we deal with copular clauses, because in copular clauses, my subject will be nominative and my predicate will be nominative. So how do I know which is which? They're both nominative. John is a man. John is a man. Well, I might see that in a sentence like, tell me about John. Then I would say, well, John is a man. Okay. What am I doing by making that sort of a statement? I'm taking the topic of discourse, John, which has already been established in my conversation, and I'm now giving new information about him via a copular construction. And your predicate will be anarthrous in those sort of circumstances. Okay? Michelle is a woman. Michelle is, a dutiful wife, and so forth. So here, it isn't merely because ha oikos mu is first. It's because it's articular that I want to take that as the subject. So my house will be called this new thing, a house of prayer. I don't mean like it never was a house of prayer. I mean, in the discourse, it's the new information. It's what makes this statement informative. Okay? All right, so there you go. Does that help at all? Okay.
I want to make a correction.
Mm-hmm.
I did from something I said earlier. Earlier I said Mounce said y'all were thrown out for number 2, which is wrong. He said that for Ada. They actually used Ekbala.
Ah, yes. Okay.
I mean, it's not what they use, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay.
wanted to correct that.
Very good. Thank you. We will now trust you.
Just hate Mounce.
No, I love Mounce. Okay.
Is Mounce still alive?
He is. He is.
Have you ever met him?
No, I haven't.
If he comes to campus, we should all go to his lecture or something.
We should. We should. All right. So eta, we do have ex ablethe. What are we looking at here? What tense is this? Yeah, aorist. And the theta eta is telling me it's aorist passive. All right. What's my personal ending? Nothing. So that's third singular. So what might my subject be? Ha'aklos. So what does ex ablethe ha'aklos mean? The crowd was thrown out. The crowd was cast out. All right. Other questions about the warm-ups? Mm-hmm. Yeah. The I don't think he's given you the noun death. Okay. What's that? Yeah. Okay. You have seen thanatos, right? Okay. So this is the adjective nekros. Oops, I put my row there too quickly. So this is nekros, the adjective that is functioning substantively here. So raised from the dead ones. This is really the idea, meaning raised from among those who are dead. Anything else here under the warm-ups? Oh, by the way, the other day, I can't remember who it was, someone asked about this type of expression on Delta. He de apokrythe kai lege auto. How do you translate he de apokrythe? And it's feminine singular. And she answered. So this article all by itself seems to have a pronominal sort of function as the subject of that verb there. We saw hade apokrythe or something like that the other day, and he did such and such. Okay. Well, since hey is feminine, yes, right? That's why we're saying she. Otherwise, it would be hade if it were and he answered. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. Shall we move on to the translations? I have about 10 minutes here. Let's see how many of these we can get through. The difference between what? Well, there's a difference of aspect, right? One would be imperfect in Greek, and one would be aorist. Mm-hmm. So number one. Oh yeah. So elale. So how did we parse elale here? Well, what's the lexical form first of all? So this is from laleo. Good. And when you see the epsilon before that lambda, you're thinking this is a past time verb form because that's an augment. So my choices are imperfect or aorist. And the next question then is, what do I do with that? Is there an aorist tense formative here? No, there's not. Well, does that mean it can't be aorist? No, because it could be a second aorist, couldn't it? And the question we need to ask ourselves is does laleo form its aorist via a first aorist or a second aorist formation? And since it's a contract verb, we don't have any reason to think it's going to do something funny. I would expect the first aorist. I would expect a first aorist to look something like this: la lesa, with that epsilon of the contract vowel lengthening and having my augment. Okay. On the other hand, if I take this as the imperfect, then I'll have my I'll have la la, and then what is my connecting vowel? Epsilon. What's my personal ending? The real ending is tau, actually. Okay? Remember, we're dealing with the secondary active endings. The secondary active endings are mu, sigma, tau, men, te, and nt. Okay? And these end up altering to nu and to nothing because the tau can't stand at the end of the word. Okay? So that's what happens here. So the tau falls out. Greek throws in the tau. Epsilon, epsilon do what? They contract and they become epsilon iota. So what I'm left with for the imperfect is elale. Elale. Is that what I have here?
Yeah.
Dynamite. Yes. Okay. And that's an active set of personal endings. So it's imperfect, active, indicative, third singular. Okay? So he was saying. He was saying. And then altois is to whom? To them. Or he was speaking. All right? So not an aorist. It's definitely an imperfect. Okay?
On number 3, just that first little phrase threw me off. The kai egeneto ain kanos, akanes.
Mm-hmm.
How do we form that? So he says, and it came to pass. I put and it happened.
Mm-hmm.
But
Both of those I would find to be acceptable. And it happened or it came to pass could be renderings for kai geneta. Mm-hmm. Now, do you know how to parse that?
parse.
Yeah. Do you know whether that's an imperfect or an aorist?
Oh, yes.
Yes?
Yes.
No? Yes? Yes, no.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is what threw me off. I was trying to figure out the stem.
Mm-hmm.
That no, I remember what threw me off. So what is the lexical genomai?
It is.
Because of it changed the stem in the aorist.
Right. So genomai is my present stem. And the imperfect is going to use, again, like that. What's that?
That was here. Oh, okay.
No. So like the imperfect would be ageneta with the gen, right? And so this is a different stem than gen. So this must be the aorist. But it's not a first aorist. It's a second aorist, right? Second aorist and first aorist are differ by the second aorist having no augment. And that allows us to distinguish the present stem of the imperfect from the aorist stem of the second aorist. So yeah, you'd want to translate it as a simple past time. And it came to pass, and it happened, not it was happening or it was coming to pass.
Okay. So and it happened is fine.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right. Other questions?
I have a quick question about number 6.
Mm-hmm.
For the for eutheson hekastos, and hekastos is the subject, but it's singular, and for eutheson is plural.
Mm-hmm.
So is that because it's a plural idea?
Yes. This is interesting because this is a situation that we also find in Hebrew. Also, the kaya geneta sounds very Hebrew. It's vayhi in Hebrew. Here, kai eperuthe san is clearly third person plural, but hekastos is masculine singular. But the hekastos means each one, right? Each one went to his house. Or, yeah. And so it is using the plural because the idea here of each one is going to include more than one person if we're really distributing that idea across all these individuals. So you definitely will see that. So good. On the other hand, when you get to Jesus, he's the subject of this one, which is now singular, isn't it? Eparouthe. And it's because it's not a distributive use of each. It is literally just referring to one person's action. Okay? We have 3 minutes, so what else? Mm-hmm. Yes.
I translated that the crowds were feared.
Uh-huh. Were they all wearing Halloween costumes? The crowd was feared. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, okay. Well, let's take a look at this. So let's start at the beginning. Kai ed zaytun altan. What's that? It's from zetao. Imperfect. Because the aorist would be ed zetesa with the sigma alpha. So what does zetao mean? To seek. So is this, what person and number is that? It's third plural. Could be first singular as well. So either I was seeking him or they were seeking him. Or they were seeking to arrest him. Kai, and it probably in this context could even be rendered as but because the notion is contrastive. They were seeking to arrest him, but ephabethesan tan achlan. Look at the case of tan achlan. Is this the subject of ephabethesan? That's accusative, isn't it? So it would appear to be the direct object. Ephabethesan. What tense is this? Is it future? Ephabethes? It's aorist. It's just a theta eta. San is third plural. So presumably it's the same they as up here at the beginning. They were seeking to arrest him, and at the same time they what? Were afraid of or feared Tanachlan, the crowd. Okay? So this is really interesting. We have an aorist passive indicative third person plural form that doesn't have a genuinely passive meaning, does it? It's actually got an active meaning. This is the kind of thing that Mounce would say, oh, well, this is deponent. Okay? And here's the deal. One of the things that you see happening in the Koine period of Greek is that verbs that would have been middle voice, especially if they were quote-unquote deponent or middle only, the aorist passive is starting to encroach on the aorist middle. So forms that would have normally taken an aorist middle start taking aorist passives with the same meaning that the aorist middle would have had. And so we're really going to translate this as if it were an aorist middle rather than an aorist passive, because we're not going to give it a purely passive notion, because this is a verb here that clearly takes a direct object, which is what the aorist middle would have done. So it's they were afraid or they feared the crowd, for they knew that such and such. Okay? He'd speak in the parable against them. You're going to see, we just had agenata just a little while ago. So we need to end here. So kai agenata. That was what? Second aorist middle indicative. Okay? But it's a middle only form. So we're going to translate it as it happened. It came about, came to pass. It's not truly passive in meaning. we're also going to see verb forms like this. Kai aganethe. Now look at that very carefully. What do we have going on here? This is the aorist passive indicative third singular, and it is used with an equivalent meaning as that. There's nothing passive about this verb. You would still translate it as, and it came to pass. It came about. It happened. Okay? So there is a real sense of flux in the language of Koine Greek at the time of the New Testament where there are shifts happening. And in many situations, you'll see a passive form being used where a middle form was used in a verb that Mounce and others would have called a deponent verb. Okay? You'll still translate it as if it had a kind of an active sense. All right, good. Well, let's stop there.